Hi, this is the new laser lettering guide for Adobe Illustrator and Adobe After Effects for 2009 for the CS3. This will probably work for CS4 as well. But I want to begin and show you the PDF file that I have worked up to this point. It shows the final movie, which I'll show you in a second. And what I would like you to be aware of is in the movie I don't have a dot over my own name. So I have one path that I am utilizing. In the handout and in the new movie, in the tutorial guide and in my new example, there will be a dot over the I that forms separately than the word Brian because they're two separate paths. So the whole goal is, and please follow this more or less as I am going through the steps, and I am going to be very close to what this handout says. The goal is to choose a typeface, to make a character, your first name, your last name, whatever name you want. Don't make it too long. I say somewhere between 5 and 10 characters normally, and try to put the whole thing together so that all the separate characters after it's made into a font become one shape. If you don't, then handle each separate shape as a path that you're going to have an open end to. So you would, instead, if you had 5 separate characters, you'd be bringing 5 separate paths at one time into After Effects. I'm going to be bringing 2 separate paths into After Effects. One for the BRIAN, which I'm going to join together, and one for the dot. Now let's get right down to my Illustrator version of this, and I'm eventually going to get to this point where I'm showing on the bottom here, where I'm circling, where I have the word Brian. With an open little end that I'm circling right there in the front of the word. I'll actually get closer to this. Brian with an open end in the front of the word, and Brian with an open end over the dot on the left side. Everything else though is joined together. So as I go through this, let's kind of be expeditious and make a fun event. So let me go down like this and show you the final movie of the older one. And this one has a lightning bolt in it, which I'll try to explain when I get to the After Effects version, but here it comes. Now there were 4 separate elements taking place here, 5 actually with the lightning bolt. But if I start out, there's a right-on effect that is the blue lettering. Then there's a beam effect that is following the path as well. There's a lens flare which is following the path as well. And I said those in order. And there's a particle effect which actually is going to be underneath the beam. The highest thing on the list here is going to be the lens flare. The next thing down is going to be the beam. The next thing is going to be the particle effects. And then the following thing is going to be the lettering, of course. So that's what we want to do, and we want to throw some music into it. And this is how Illustrator works hand in hand with Photoshop. So now I'm going to go to my Illustrator Untitled Page, which is just a nothing, and I'm going to quickly get through this. Again, I am going through these directions. Let me put this Command 0. I am going through these directions more or less step by step. I don't feel there's a real big need to come back to this as I'm going through it. All right, you just kind of keep your eye open as to what I'm saying and how I'm doing it, but I pretty much laid out 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 as per I'm going to do them right now. So let me minimize this and get right to it. Let me hit the direct select tool, the text tool, and click, and only click, and let me type in Brian. And let me click on it with the direct select tool, and let's make this be 100 points in size. Now I'm going to find the word Brian in the brush script aspect of this. I could have just typed brush. It'll get me there just as fast. Let me go down a little bit and let me find brush script. I'm going to use the brush script standard of medium, and I'm going to get closer to it so we can kind of get going on this. I always tell you not to ruin an original, but would you look up here at the layer palette over to the right, how there's only one word Brian over there. Now let's keep our eye on the layer palette as we're going through this, because the layer palette is going to tell us if we have any leftover or stray points or stray text boxes. All you can do when you're finished is copy one thing. Really, since I'm doing Brian and the dot, I'm going to be bringing 2 things and only 2 things into After Effects, but they are going to be the completed things that I want to make. So I'm going to hold Command Option and make another word Brian down here, which of course makes 2 Brians in the layer palette. That's okay. I'm now going to hit Command Option 0 as I tell you to turn everything into paths. I'm going to remove the fill, as you can see that I'm doing, and I'm going to click on the stroke over here. I'm going to click black on the stroke after I find the stroke right over here. I think I closed it. And no, stroke is there. Where did I put stroke? There's stroke. And stroke is going to go to 0.25, and it's going to go to black at 0.25. The reason why 0.25 is it's easier to work with a thinner stroke than it is with a thicker stroke, if I may say that. Now what I want you to see is I have the word Brian in separate characters. Very, very easy to see. I have a closed section right here where I'm highlighting. That can't stay closed. And I have a closed section here for the letter A. That cannot stay closed. And of course the R doesn't match up. Now use your techniques that you've learned from Illustrator to grab certain things, cut certain things, and join certain things. Let's grab this little end part of the R, and I'm going to slide it right into the bottom of this. I'm then going to click the points to get the handlebars, and I'm just going to go and line this up so that it flows directly in when I unite these two things together. Now that was relatively easy, and this is all going to be gone, of course, because it's going to unite together and join into one thing. The R is already joining into the I into the A, and the A into the N, but I have a problem. And here's where I want you to use your expertise in Illustrator. The C key is to cut, so I'm going to click and click a small section out of here. Whenever you hit and cut something, you always hit 2 deletes to delete out the segment, then to delete out the point or points. And let me go click this one and go over here and click, whoops, and I just missed a little teeny weeny bit. Click, and let's hit with the direct select tool, delete, delete. Now I tell you in the handout you have 2 ways to do this. You can either take the pen and join them in together by holding the Option key, or make both points solid and just hit Command J. Now I'm going to take the pen, which I didn't tell you in the handout, and I have extra points which are making the line kind of messy, so now I've actually put in the points and deleted the points to make just a cleaner line. Now let me take the pen tool, hold the Option key and click, and hold the Option key and close. Could have done the same thing. I could have selected both of those points and hit Command J to join. Now let me go back over here and go to the character of A. Remember, they're not letters anymore, they are objects. Now let me get close to this, and I'm going to hit the C key, and I'm going to cut this in a larger area than I did before when I did a test movie. I don't know why I told you that. And I'm going to click over here and click way down here and join this in, and leaving myself with a little bit of artwork to clean up. Again, I take the pen tool. Watch how I can hold the Option key and join in that stroke without hurting the previous side. If you don't hold the Option key, then this whole left-hand side of the point moves. I hold the Option key and join and pull the handlebar and clean that up a little bit. Now that is not really necessary. That point that I just put in to join, that wasn't really necessary. All I have to do is grab the direct select tool, and I can now just round that off and make it cleaner. Now let's join in this. Look at how I'm joining this in. I'm actually going to not hold the Option key so the handlebar is connected. Now I'm going to hold the Option key over here, and I'm going to try to maintain a parallel line right there. Now I'm going to do some little fancy maneuvering so that that just rounds off nicely. I have that perfect, and it's only one thing. I would like you to look up here in this new group that was formed in the layer palette. I should have separate items until I join them all together. Let's count for a moment. I have a B, an R, an I, an A, and an N, and a dot. That's 6. I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 because the I is actually 2 shapes. I believe the I is 2 shapes. Let me see what I've got going on here. Where is my little dot? There is the N, there's the A, there's the I. The I is a compound path. Now, that's okay. And I don't mind that it's a compound path, but because I'm going to remove the compound path aspect of this. When Illustrator decided to make it from a font to an object, it knew that an I was supposed to be connected, so it made it into a compound path. Which all of them are compound paths, but really now each one only has one shape involved in it, except for the dot over the I, which makes it 2. But let me now go to, see, I cut that, I cut that, I cut that. I'm talking too much, which my wife tells me I do all the time. And I am ready to go. Now in the handout it says the next step is to join it all together. Now, to do that, we want to grab all of this, go to Object, Path, Object, Compound Path, Release. Now that I've released all the compound path aspects of it, a minute ago I said there were 5 things up here in the layer palette. Now there are 6 because there are 6 shapes. You must remove the compound path out of this. Now I'm going to take the fill to black. I'll actually take the stroke to nothing for right now. And oops, I had the upper one selected and I didn't want the upper lettering selected. That's why this was question marks over here. Okay, I saw that the font up here was selected. So stroke to nothing, fill to black, and over in the Pathfinder, I want you to see that in the handout I've actually identified it. I'll quickly go to the handout and show you that over here I have identified the top left shape as the Unite character. In the previous versions from CS4, I'm in Illustrator CS4, you had to hold the Option key. This time, do not click Option with it. Do not Option click. So I'm going to minimize that, go back to this, and I'm just going to click the Unite command. Now, did you see on screen how everything just joined in together nicely? Now, the last thing to do before we bring it into After Effects is to open up the group and see how you have 2 correct things over here now. See, 6 turned into 2 because I have 2 things I want to bring in. So I'm going to remove the fill. I'm going to make the stroke black. And I'm going to make the size, just for the heck of it, at, there it is. I'm going to make the size be 0.25. Doesn't matter anymore. I just want you to see how it's nice and conveniently perfect. Now, the next thing is to copy it. I suggest that you go up to the radio buttons up here and you shift click both of those items. But I also said in my handout you must do 2 things. You must go to Illustrator, Preferences, Files and Clipboard. Look where I'm going. You must preserve paths. Yours will be on Preserve Appearance. I want it on Preserve Paths on the AICB for Adobe Illustrator Clipboard. And now let's go into, I have forgotten the second one. No, I haven't. Let's go into Object, Path, Clean Up, and let's make sure there's no stray points or empty text paths. Okay, and it said, of course, no cleanup was necessary because no, don't say it. And let's go now and hit Command C. And now the next movie, when I go in, will show how I paste it into After Effects and keep on going with the story. Please try to get yours to be 1 path and double check your layer palette and make sure it's 1 path. In other words, mine was 2 because I have a Brian and a dot. If you only have your word with no dot over anything or separate, and you don't have any separate shapes, it should only be 1 path. It's extremely important it be 1 path. Now you can use my handout to go to various shapes, but play with it. Make sure you have no A's or O's or D's that have an inside shape. Okay, try to cut away to those from the inside, from the outside to the inside, so that you can conveniently make the laser beam go around the whole thing and draw it, as you will see. Take care.